Hi, and welcome back. Tonight, we're traveling back in time to rural Bavaria in 1922 to unravel one of the most chilling and perplexing unsolved crimes in European history. A quiet farmstead. A small family living in isolation. A series of eerie events that no one could quite explain. And then, one night, brutality so savage that it left an entire community shaken for generations. This is the story of the Hinterkaifeck Murders, a mystery so strange and haunting that more than a century later, it still grips investigators, true crime enthusiasts, and conspiracy theorists alike. 6 people slaughtered in their own home. Footprints in the snow leading to the farm, but none leaving. Whispers of someone living in the attic. Theories ranging from vagrants to lovers to supernatural forces. Join us as we dive deep into one of history's darkest puzzles, the Hinterkaifeck farmhouse killings. Part 1. The setting Hinterkaifeck Farmhouse story begins in Bavaria, Germany. The year is 1922. The world is still reeling from the aftermath of the First World War. Germany is battered, politically unstable, economically strained, and socially fractured. Nestled deep in the countryside lies Hinterkaifeck, a small farm located between the towns of Ingolstadt and Schrobenhausen. Isolated, remote, and surrounded by woods and fields, it was the perfect picture of rural solitude. The farm belonged to the Gruber family, Andreas Gruber, the 63-year-old patriarch. Cecilia Gruber, his 72-year-old wife. Victoria Gabriel, their widowed daughter, aged 35. Cecilia, Victoria's 7-year-old daughter. Joseph, Victoria's 2-year-old son. And the family's maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had just arrived to work at the farm. On the surface, it seemed like an ordinary household. But appearances can be deceiving. Part 2. Whispers of trouble. Before the murders, strange things began happening at Hinterkaifeck. Andreas Gruber confided to neighbors that he had seen footprints in the snow leading from the edge of the forest straight to the farmhouse. But there were no footprints leading back. Inside the house, Andreas claimed he heard footsteps in the attic late at night. But whenever he searched, he found nothing. A set of keys went missing. A strange newspaper from Munich was found in the house, one that no one in the family had purchased. Neighbors later recalled that the Grubers mentioned feeling watched, as though someone was lurking near the property. Yet despite these unsettling events, life went on. Part 3. The night of the murders on. The evening of March 31st, 1922, something horrific happened. One by one, members of the Gruber family were lured into the barn. How exactly is unknown, but investigators believe the killer used noises or tricks to draw them outside. Inside the barn, 4 members of the household were murdered: Andreas Gruber, his wife, Cecilia, their daughter, Victoria, and young Cecilia, the 7-year-old granddaughter. Each was struck with a mattock, a heavy farming tool similar to a pickaxe. The blows were brutal, crushing skulls and leaving them barely recognizable. Afterward, the bodies were stacked on top of each other and covered with hay. Back in the farmhouse, the killer turned to the remaining 2 victims. Victoria's 2-year-old son, Joseph, was murdered in his crib. And the maid, Maria, was killed in her bedroom. 6 lives extinguished in one night of unimaginable savagery. Part 4. The discovery days passed with no sign of the Grubers. Neighbors noticed something odd. The family's cattle were still being fed, smoke rose from the chimney, and meals seemed to have been prepared. Yet no one had seen or heard from the family. Finally, on April 4th, 1922, neighbors went to the farm to investigate. What they found was a scene of horror. Bodies stacked in the barn. The maid and baby dead inside the house. And a chilling realization. The killer may have remained at the farm after the murders, tending to animals and eating meals as though nothing had happened. It was a discovery so disturbing that it shook not only the small community, but the entire nation. Part 5. The investigation police descended on Hinterkaifeck. But this was 1922. Forensics were primitive, and the crime scene quickly became contaminated as curious locals walked through the farm. The autopsies revealed the brutality. Shattered skulls, deep wounds, and in young Kazilia's case, evidence she may have survived for hours after the attack, pulling out her own hair in shock and agony. But who could have committed such a monstrous crime? Part 6. The suspects. Over the years, countless theories emerged. Let's examine the most prominent ones. 1. A vagrant or robber. Some believed a transient or thief committed the murders. But nothing valuable was stolen, and the care taken to feed animals afterward seemed inconsistent with a random crime. 2. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor, Lorenz, quickly became a prime suspect. He had a complicated relationship with the family. He was rumored to be the father of Victoria's son Joseph, though this was disputed. When the bodies were discovered, Lorenz reportedly showed little emotion. Some claimed he knew details he shouldn't have. But despite suspicion, no solid evidence tied him to the killings. 3. Victoria's husband had died in World War I, or so it was believed. Some speculated he faked his death and returned for revenge. But there was no proof, and the theory faded. 4. A family affair. Dark rumors surrounded the Gruber household. Andreas and Victoria were said to have an incestuous relationship, something for which Andreas had even been convicted years earlier. Could jealousy, shame, or revenge have fueled the crime? 5. Multiple killers. Given the brutality and the way the family was lured one by one into the barn, some believed more than one person was involved. Part 7. The strange clues. What makes the Hinterkaifeck murders so haunting are the bizarre details. The footprints leading into the farm but not out. The newspaper from Munich left in the house without explanation. The missing keys never recovered. The animals fed. Someone cared for the livestock after the murders. The attic noises, suggesting someone may have lived there watching the family. It paints a picture not just of murder, but of psychological terror. Whoever did this may have stalked the family for days, or even weeks, before striking. Part 8. The aftermath. Despite years of investigation, no one was ever charged. In the 1950s, long after the murders, students at a police academy re-examined the case. They reportedly identified a prime suspect but refused to name the person out of respect for surviving family. To this day, the killer remains officially unknown. The original farmhouse was eventually demolished. But the memory of the crime lingers like a ghost. Part 9. Theories and speculation. The Hinterkaifeck murders continue to inspire debate. Some argue it was a crime of passion, perhaps Lorenz Schlittenbauer, jealous or enraged. Others insist it was a calculated killing by someone who knew the family intimately. And then there are those who suggest a darker explanation, that the killer may have lived in the house for days, hidden in the attic, watching, waiting, and finally striking in cold blood. Part 10. Why the case endures. Why does the Hinterkaifeck case continue to haunt us? It's the combination of brutality and mystery. A whole family wiped out, but no clear motive. Bizarre details that suggest the killer lingered. And the unsettling possibility that the murderer was someone the family knew and trusted. It's a story that blurs the line between true crime and horror, a nightmare made real. Conclusion: over a century later, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the darkest unsolved crimes in history. 6 lives taken in a farmhouse surrounded by snow. A killer who vanished without a trace. And a trail of clues that only deepened the mystery. Perhaps we'll never know who committed the crime. But one thing is certain: the shadows of Hinterkaifeck still linger, a chilling reminder of how even in the quietest places, darkness can descend without warning. This has been the story of the Hinterkaifeck murders, Germany's most mysterious unsolved farmhouse killings. What do you think? Was it a jealous neighbor, a family secret, or something even stranger? Sometimes the scariest mysteries are the ones that remain unsolved.